Hello, it's Richard Bowser here from Property Investor News. Now today I am in Chalfont St Giles in leafy Buckinghamshire, and I've come across Paul Higgs, who is a very well-known land and property developer, and he's written a really interesting article for us in the June edition of Property Investor News. Paul, good morning.
Hello.
Hello there. So Paul, we are at this amazing site that you've created over the last number of years. Tell us about this site and the background to it.
Yeah. So the site's called Birch Grove in Chalfont St Giles in Buckinghamshire, as you say, where I've a few months ago finished the 3 detached houses. They're pretty out of the ordinary in terms of the design for various reasons, which I can tell you about later. You know, prior to me coming along, the site had a 35-year history of planning refusals. Okay, so it's green belt, it's an area of outstanding natural beauty, particularly anti-development local authority. So it had eight refusals prior to us. Took me 5 years and had to win it at appeal in the end. But obviously we've done it, we've built it, we've now just got to get them sold.
Yes.
But you know, I'm relatively happy with it. You know, it's looking good.
Yeah. And it was historically a working farm, or part of a working farm?
It was a small holding. So
right.
so you know, few animals on there. Bloke was growing a few things. So yeah, it was a small holding, but it was, you know, obviously fell into disrepair and wasn't financially viable for many years.
Yes.
So basically just sat as a sort of dilapidated small holding with loads of old buildings on it, really. Yeah. But nevertheless, because of the green belt and AONB designation, meant it was going to be very difficult, or if not impossible, to do anything else in planning terms.
And various people tried and failed, but you came along and saw.
Yeah, exactly. I think like I said, I think there were 8 refusals prior to us coming along over a 35-year period. I could see the potential. I'm pretty good on planning. I think now I've got 100% planning track record, although it was, you know, nearly lost it on this one. But got it in the end. So yeah, I could see the potential. Thought I had a bit of an angle. It was a difficult argument, but I say we eventually won it in the end, thanks to the planning inspector.
Right. So you won this on appeal.
Yeah.
So when was the first submission put in? Or was it just pre?
What from on my part? For
yes.
me? Yes. Well, so you know, as you know, I've got sort of another business as well that teaches other developers how to do this stuff, and part of that is like systemizing the whole process and breaking it down step by step.
Right.
And the step about getting planning starts with coming up with your planning strategy. And because it's always different for different things.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest mistakes people make is they think it's all the same and they just do the same stuff all the time.
Yeah, it's not a cookie cutter.
Absolutely site specific. So on this one, based on the long, difficult planning history, and a whole load of other sort of research we did, including knowing that local authority are very anti-development, and knowing that it was highly likely that we'd end up having to win this at appeal, probably going to be the only way we would ever get it.
Yes.
You know, that lent itself to a very specific strategy, which really meant doing it slowly, unfortunately, so that if and when we ended up at appeal, as was highly likely, the planning inspector could actually see exactly what we've done, and the fact that, you know, look back at the process and see that we've tried to do everything right, we tried to negotiate it, and basically the fact that we couldn't do any more, that our approach was the right one, and then you know, hopefully he or she would agree. So basically the strategy meant a load of sort of informal negotiations very early on, likewise with public consultation very early on.
Yes.
Involving all sorts of potentially interested parties to take their views on board, a number of pre-apps, which is not actually usually what I tell people to do. Lots of people think that pre-apps is a solution. You're going to do a pre-app and the planner's going to tell you the answers. That is not actually how it works. But we did do a number of pre-apps here largely so that when it gets looked back on, so that planning inspector could see the steps and the stages and what we've started with and what we ended up with.
And just basically, so we've got 3 large detached properties in a very green, verdant location, surrounded by woodland, and it's very natural. I mean, I'm just looking around.
Yeah, so I say it was an old small holding covered in agricultural buildings, most of them dilapidated, the majority of them actually falling down.
Yes.
And one of the key tests in the green belt is around openness. So the site wasn't very open anyway because it was covered in horrible old buildings. So part of our approach was to remove 60-70% of the buildings, of the footprint and the hard standing that was here, and then replace some of them, or rather sort of rebuild the same shapes and sizes.
Right.
So we picked we picked key footprints of buildings in certain places, and then effectively joined them together in plan terms. And we've got the same heights, the same volumes, the same shapes and sizes. So basically the same overall mass, but albeit it's now new build and residential rather than a number of horrible old barns and stuff stuck together,
So you've taken something which was unloved, unwanted, unusable, certainly commercially totally unviable.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So in planning terms, the argument was, well, look, in terms of shapes and sizes of what's there, it's not that really any different to what it was before, apart from now it's brand new and looking good. We've got rid of 60% of the horrible old rubbish there, so we've massively opened the site up.
Yes.
We've spent fortunes on landscaping, so basically we've made it what Greenbelt and AONB should be. Nevertheless, it took 40 years overall to do it.
To get it to this stage. So in terms of the actual buildings that have been created, a little bit about that, and you.
Yeah, so they're all 5 or 6 bed houses, on average about 4,000 square foot, so they're fairly big. They are steel frame, which is pretty unusual actually, certainly for residential buildings.
Yes.
And the reason they are steel frame is because we've got very high ceilings and very big open spans, which are hard to do really any way.
Yes.
You look down there, for example, afterwards you can see we've got big long corridors, very interesting, strange roof angles. So steel was really the only sensible, logical, quickest way to do it, which is pretty unusual. And also one of the overarching focuses is on a thing called biophilic design, which you may or may not be familiar with. Biophilic design is about the connectedness between people and nature, and about living conditions and wellness and things like that. So it's involved lots of natural light, lots of natural materials, proximity to planting. Most of the houses have got internal atriums and things like that. So that's a big part of the concept here as well.
Well, it's certainly a stunning property, this one, and I'm sure the other 2 are not dissimilar. And what is lovely, just looking around, as I say, is all the greenery and this feeling of as you say, an attachment to nature. No, really, really impressive. So, in terms of readers, viewers of Property Investor News, what are the key things from the point of view of approaching this type of site within a challenging area in terms of, as you say, you'd identified the local authority or anti-development. What should people be thinking about, Paul?
Yeah, so, well, look, nearly all local authorities in the country are anti-development. Certainly anywhere nice that you want to actually build and develop.
Yes.
Lots of NIMBYs about, people that are already there generally don't want you to develop, and lots of decision making is political, as we know. So this is a classic example really of a grey belt site. But nevertheless, it wasn't easy, and going forward, if and when we do end up with a grey belt policy, I still doubt it will be that easy, but there will be ways to square the circle, I think, and I'm pretty sure I know what they are, but they're going to be different on all of the different sites. So I told you the approach here with a footprint replacement and replacing the volumes and shapes and sizes of the existing buildings in order to open up the green belt. Sometimes that will be the thing to do, sometimes it won't. Interestingly, there's a really cool, I think, organisation called Building with Nature that I've actually trained to be a building with nature assessor, not because I want to go around assessing other people's schemes, just I'm really into it and I wanted to learn their approach.
Yeah, understand.
And we were actually doing everything that they propose here. So anyway, they've got sort of like 12 standards, and it's all about, incorporating, building with nature, as you could imagine, right?
Yes.
Getting nature into and around the scheme. And I actually think that should be and will be perhaps a key thing when it comes to developing green belt sites, grey belt sites, in terms of making them sort of, more how people imagine them to be, because that's a big part of the problem. People are very anti-green belt because they assume that it all means chopping down trees and building over fields, but not all green belts like that, which is of course where the whole grey belt stuff comes in.
So you've given us a reasonably summary of what is now here, and we talked about the planning challenges over 40 years of getting this to where it is today. In terms of the practicalities of the construction, it's a steel frame, but this has been put together over what period? A couple of years now?
Yeah, so pretty much 2 years now, actually, from start to finish, because again, couldn't have been a worse time.
This is what I was alluding to.
Because in the design stages, obviously, we building up to that, we had COVID, so there's a whole load of material stuff we didn't even know whether we were going to be able to get. So do you design them in or do you not? Half the design team were off and nothing was happening, so we had massive delays there. And of course, when we came to building it over the last 2 years, it's we've had the biggest build cost increases at any time since the Second World War, right? So that meant there was a constant process of redesign and value engineering. Very often you just couldn't get stuff that was designed in. We were going to, so for example, a big part of what was happening here at early stages was going to be SIPS panels, so structurally insulated panels. Right around the time we were just about to order them, you couldn't get them,
get hold of them.
right? So and the price rocketed, so we had to do a quick redesign to do things in a different way. So that was pretty much constant through it. So I must have got to say, I built a lot of stuff in my time. I've never built anything as painful and as difficult as this, partly because of the timing, but also because of the nature of the build, actually. It couldn't be any more non-standard. Yeah, so obviously the reason house builders have got all of their standard house types and they build rectangular boxes is because they are the cheapest, most efficient, easy things to build. If you look here, we've got none of that. Everything is different materials, different angles, different shapes. This is like 100% non-standard.
It's very bespoke.
It really is, yeah.
And it's pretty much all on one.
Yeah,
so
we got there's three houses here. One of them's all on a single level.
Right.
This one here is predominantly on a single level. It's got a couple of mezzanines, and then we've got one that's got a couple of full 2-story bits. Yeah, so a bit more. Well, I'm not going to say it's like a normal house because it's nothing like a normal house, but at least it's got a bit of proper 2-story, whereas the others haven't.
Energy efficiency aspect?
Yeah, so massive focus. Like I say, the key focuses here are obviously have been on biophilic design and sustainability. So they're all fully net zero, the three houses. So we've got solar panels, air source heat pumps, mechanical ventilation and heat recovery. They're all massively well insulated. They're not passive house, but they're not far off airtight. So it's obviously it's all of that gets you way past the EPCA into the net zero.
So Paul, were there any specific challenges on the build site? Obviously this is, as you say, it's a green belt area.
Yeah, so in terms of the build, the main challenges were around timing and managing costs and procurement of subcontractors and materials.
Yes.
And to some extent, a lot of that stuff happens all the time, but it's definitely been crazy the last couple of years.
Been exacerbated by
all sorts of things, Brexit, Ukraine, Suez Canal, you name it. And but one of the big problems or issues has been around the fact that these have been so bespoke and non-standard. And I think it's important that people understand this because it's really easy Let's come back to permitted development. I've just written an article for you recently about that. I've done enough of that in my time as well. But people get sucked into thinking it's somehow easy, right? But it's absolutely not easy, right? Now, obviously, this was new build, which is much easier than converting stuff, right? Which I think a lot of people don't understand. They think converting stuff is easier, and it's not. One of the other problems with a lot of the PD stuff, and certainly things like Class Q agricultural conversions, just for example, because these look a little bit like that, they're funny shaped sizes, old barns and things like that. The fact is that you've got lots of non-standard stuff, which isn't cheap to build. So, for example, I was about a year ago was at the NHBC technical conference, where obviously everyone's talking about technical issues and design and all the latest updates to building regs and the future home standards and what have you. And this guy was doing a little bit of a presentation about the 10 things that must be avoided at all costs. Yeah, and it's like lots of different materials, lots of different junctions and connections, lots of weird angles and blah blah blah. But basically, you name it, I got every single one of them here.
So
right?
you ticked every box that you
box.
shouldn't be.
And lots of PD stuff, but particularly things like Class Q, for example, it will have that because it's funny shapes, sizes, angles. None of it is standard, right? So the reason developers typically, a lot of them, particularly major house builders, stick to traditional construction and rectangular stuff because it is, it's all readily available. Everyone knows what they're doing. Conversely, you just think about the construction details of putting all of this, different materials, different angles, different shapes. Unless you're a builder or a good architect, you wouldn't really understand just how difficult it is.
Well, we're definitely in a green agricultural rural area because I'm looking out directly behind you, and there's a wild animal.
Oh, they are. Yeah.
Crazy. Good. Is it a muntjac or something?
Is that?
It's a small one, whatever it is.
It's an interesting one, actually. So, there's new problems with every day's a school day, isn't it, right?
Yeah.
So one of the problems on here since we finished has actually been stopping the deer eating all the plants. I must have spent, seriously, getting on for £250,000 on planting and landscaping.
And now the
little, and stopping the deers eating them is a bit of a challenge.
So this is the smallest unit that's just under 4,000 square feet. It's a minimum of 5 beds. But the house has been arranged, all of the houses actually have been arranged to be super flexible. So there's space for at least 2 offices. There's snugs, there's a number of little mezzanines. All the houses have also been designed so that they have self-contained spaces within them that have their own front doors. So, for example, on this one, you can come in through a little kitchenette boot room and then have an entrance into your own sort of little studio flat, almost actually, that's got its own, ensuite bathroom. It's got a little living space. It's got a separate space for the bed. So, that would be ideal for nannies, grannies, teenage kids, or guests, obviously. So the houses have all been designed with flexibility and livability in mind. And as I've already mentioned, there's a massive focus on biophilic design, which is about the connectedness between people and nature. So there's always lots of natural light, views out towards planting and even internal planting. As you can see in this house, we've got an internal planted atrium. So that's the sort of overarching concept, really. Lots of very high spaces, so it's all very interesting stuff.
Paul, we're standing outside now, one of the buildings, and so the basic numbers on this one, how are they looking?
So I don't know yet. The final numbers because we haven't sold them.
No, quite.
Yeah. So they were launched about 6 weeks ago. We've got them on the market with local agent and with Sotheby's. So we'll see. We just had a viewing here today, as you know. GDV should hopefully be around 11 or 12 million quid.
Right.
But we'll see. We won't know. Obviously, we've got weird times. The market's pretty flat.
Yeah.
Got election coming up. People aren't really buying. It's certainly at these levels. These are all sort of like 4-ish million quid houses. Yeah.
Yes.
So we won't really know until they're all sold. But target GDV is around 11-12 million quid. Total all-in costs, what with finance and what have you, is looking around 9ish.
Right.
Yeah. Although interestingly, build costs we talked earlier, this last 2 years have gone up. Any time, more any time since the Second World War, it's been crazy. Been a real battle to keep control of them, and that's been the same for everyone. Doesn't matter how good you are. If bit of wood doubles in price, that's you still got to buy it. Yeah.
Yes.
So so build costs gone up 1.5 million quid over budget during the course of this project. So that's obviously straight off the bottom line.
Yes.
So suffice to say, whatever the final outcome, it will be nowhere near as it could have been. But then, therein lies property development for you. Anyone that thinks it's easy or get rich quick is mistaken.
Absolutely.
But anyway, hopefully, we'll come out with a few quid. At the very least, it should look good on the CV. It's not about that. Obviously, we're in business to make money as well. But it should win a load of awards. It's already shortlisted for the Housing Design Awards, the Construction Excellence Awards, the Net Zero Homes Awards. So they're the only ones we put it in for so far. So whatever the case, it's a pretty extraordinary scheme.
Absolutely,
and I'm fairly proud of it.
No, you should be, from what I can see. It really is quite something. Would you do it again?
Cool. Wow. Well, obviously, I don't know. I can't tell you for sure until all the numbers are in, right? But look. I don't like. I've built a lot of stuff over the years, including standard housing. I don't really want to be doing. I want to be sort of like trying to push the envelope, really, in terms of people. That's why I got the training business, right? In terms of people doing much better quality stuff and doing things in a different way to basically move housing and development forward, really. So I sadly probably would do it again, however much money it makes or it doesn't make, because as a developer, you got to be a bit resilient and determined, and that is just really the nature of a successful developer, really.
Yes. So would you advise any embryonic property developers watching this video to take on a project of this nature?
Definitely not like this. Like I say, I started out in construction, right? So I know how to build stuff. Like I told you, build costs went up 1.5 million quid. If it wasn't for constant, redesigning, value engineering, knowing how to do things in a different way, that would have very easily been 3 million quid.
Yeah.
So, I definitely wouldn't advise anyone that starting out or new to try something like this. And whoever, whatever you're doing, whoever you are, key thing is to really work with the right people, listen to the right people. Don't get sucked into all of the bullshit about, how easy it is, because it's just not. The fact of the matter is, property development is not easy. And remember, this is my 40th year in it, right? And I'm telling you, it's not easy.
I think that's a good way to end this one.
Yeah.
Paul Higgs.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time. Paul Higgs, Millbank Group, Richard Bowser, Property Investor News. Thank you.